It's biology with Mr. B. Biology with Mr. B. That's me! Right, hello Year 11. Just firstly, absolute legends for all of you there at Period 6. I hope you've signed the register regardless. That would be awesome if you have. My job in 15 to 20-ish minutes is to go through what I can of the hormones topic. To be fair to everyone in all the groups, what I've done is I'm only going to go through the bits that are in the combined spec. I'm not going to go through any of the triple only bits like kidney or plant hormones. So if you wanted to go through them, well, go on FileStore, go to my revision material. It is all there for you anyway. Okay, so the first thing I think we absolutely need to discuss is what is actually meant by the term hormone. What is its definition? You can actually kind of split this into a 4-marker. That may seem daft with a single definition, but you can. Firstly, it is a chemical messenger. It gets produced by endocrine glands. And if you remember from the nervous system topic, glands are one of the types of effector. An effector can either be a muscle or a gland. So these glands are very much can be in contact with your nervous system. It is secreted into the blood and transported around your body also via the blood. Its job is to act on target organs and cause an effect within them. So the two main types that I'd like to get across that are in the combined part of the spec are the hormones involved in the menstrual cycle and the hormones involved in blood glucose regulation. So menstrual cycle first. Isn't this a fun one? Okie dokie. You may or may not know, just the menstrual cycle generally is something that occurs over a 28-day period. Ha! Period. Over a 28-day sort of cycle. Again, that's on average. It might be a bit more, might be a bit less, might change over time. Every woman is different, and every woman is usually different every single month as well. So what are the important parts of this date? Firstly, day 0, day 1, I should probably call it day 1. Day 1 is the start of menstruation, the start of the period, the start where you see blood. And at that beginning of day 1, the uterus lining is quite high. But as more and more of that uterus lining is lost out of the vagina, the uterus lining decreases. And again, that process anywhere between 3 to 5 days, 3 to 7 days. Again, all women are different. After that, the uterus lining will start to increase again. And that uterus lining will be maintained all the way through to day 28. This isn't random chance. This doesn't happen completely randomly. It happens because you have 4 different hormones working and interacting simultaneously to ensure that uterus lining is the length it is. You want your uterus lining to break down every month. You want to have a period. I assure you, as frustrating, as painful, as annoying as they are, you want it. You want one because the uterus lining breaks down because of the risk of infection. A thick uterus lining is thick in blood vessels, supplying loads of oxygen, loads of glucose to the uterus. Perfect conditions for pathogens to reproduce. So if you don't want repeated infection, you absolutely want to have a period. You also want periods of time where the uterus lining is really, really thick. You want that because you need a thick uterus lining for an egg to implant itself. A fertilized egg cell, so a zygote, an embryo, to attach itself to the uterus lining. That means that early embryo will have this beautiful access to glucose, to oxygen, to everything it needs to respire, to release energy, the energy that can be used for protein synthesis, protein for growth and repair. So that's why it changes, and that's why the uterus lining changes, but it's hormones that are doing it. And there are 4 hormones involved that I need to discuss with you. The first is called FSH. You don't need to know its actual name, follicle stimulating hormone, just remember FSH. And it is made by the pituitary gland, which is a small gland in the base of your brain. Its job is to mature egg cells, and its job is to stimulate the ovaries to make the hormone estrogen. So let's just clarify these 2 points. Maturing egg cells. Every single female was born with about 400 immature egg cells we call follicles. They're not the right shape, they're not the right size to be fertilised. In essence, they haven't got a yolk. FSH causes those immature follicles to mature into actual fully sized, fully shaped egg cells that can be fertilised by a sperm and become a zygote and eventually an embryo after a few rounds of mitosis. Without FSH, you can't get pregnant. It also stimulates the ovaries to make estrogen. So the ovaries are absolutely its target organ. So let's see what estrogen does. Estrogen is a steroid hormone, so it's going to cause growth. Estrogen's main job is to rebuild the lining of the uterus following the period. So estrogen acts there. That's estrogen doing that job. It also has a really interesting role. It stimulates the pituitary gland, I'm just going to write as PG, to produce another hormone called LH. It also inhibits the production of FSH. So why are we inhibiting FSH? Why don't you want FSH to be made anymore? Well, actually the answer there is because of something called multiple births. If a female is exposed to too much FSH, rather than making one mature egg cell per month, they might make 4 or 5. And all 4 or 5 of them might get released at the same time during ovulation. And all 4 or 5 of them might get fertilised by sperm, because the males of the human species certainly release millions of sperm per ejaculation. Yep, that's a video recording of me saying ejaculation now twice. Yeah. Multiple births are very risky. They risk harming the mother. Think too many babies, things must go pop surely. But they also risk harming the child because that mother can't sustain necessarily all 4 and 5 babies sort of requirements whilst they're inside the uterus. Might not be able to give them enough nutrients, for example. LH. LH has one job. It causes ovulation. And it does that usually midway through the cycle, about day 14. There is a 4th hormone, and it is called progesterone. And progesterone maintains the uterus lining. And if you were to get pregnant and a fertilized egg cell implants itself, so a zygote, an embryo, implants itself into the uterus lining, progesterone will be released for 9 months, ensuring that the female doesn't have a period. Because I'm sure you appreciate if you had a period whilst you're pregnant, that is the definition of a miscarriage. Okie doke. So we're maintaining the uterus lining when we have progesterone. If you don't have a fertilized egg cell, a zygote or an embryo binding to the uterus lining, progesterone will eventually stop being produced and the cycle can start again. Without progesterone, it causes the period. Progesterone has a second job though. It also inhibits FSH like estrogen did. You don't want any more mature egg cells. But it also inhibits LH, which means that you can't release any egg cells either when progesterone is going about. Which again, perfect for someone who's pregnant. It means no more egg cells mature and no more egg cells get released. Doesn't that also mean it's perfect as a contraceptive? No FSH means no eggs mature. No LH, no eggs released. If you ain't got mature eggs and they ain't being released, you can't get pregnant, surely. So this is the reason why most pills contain progesterone. It's very rare to have a progesterone-only pill because they usually have a bit more side effects than others. So the common sort of pill you might get is the combined pill, which has a bit of estrogen and progesterone. Because obviously estrogen is really good as well as a contraceptive because it also inhibits FSH. Okay, the last little bit I'd like to do regarding menstrual cycle, and then you can fire loads of questions to Mrs. Bentley if you wish to. Last thing I'd like to do is just talk about infertility treatment. Let's say you've got a couple that for whatever reason, for natural causes, can't make a baby. I'm just going to go draw the female. This is as good as my drawings get. Nice. What you would do is you might consider a process called IVF, in vitro fertilization. Effectively, that's what we know as test tube babies. How they do that is they inject the female, the woman, with FSH and LH. And they'll collect all the mature eggs that get released. And usually there might be about 5 or so, depending on how much FSH and LH they give. Usually they aim for about 5 or 6. What they do with these eggs is they let them grow. Oh no, they can't just grow just yet. Sorry, let me get my eraser. What they do is they mix the eggs with sperm from the male, and that creates a zygote, so a single fertilized egg cell. They allow the zygote to divide by mitosis to create the embryo. The embryo can then be inserted back inside the woman. Now this bit is important. You are not going to put the embryo back inside the woman's eye. You are not going to put the embryo back inside the woman's mouth. So don't just say, put it back inside the woman. You've got to specify where. You are going to put that embryo back inside her uterus. So not back inside the vagina. That's not specific enough. A baby can't grow in the vagina. For one reason, the vagina is actually slightly acidic. Not good for babies. It's going to grow inside the uterus. So that is all the stuff I've got to do with menstrual cycle. Again, you're welcome to pause this video and ask Mrs. Benyon. Mrs. Benyon? Well, she might be there. You never know. Ask Mrs. Bentley any questions you might have. Next, glucose regulation. Your blood glucose should always stay at an optimum level. If it gets too high, that means you've got a high concentration of glucose in the blood, which don't get wrong, it's going to be great for respiration, great if you're exercising, but think what that does for osmosis. Too much glucose in the blood means you've now got a lower water concentration in the blood, which may mean some water from your cells actually leaves those cells by osmosis to go into the blood, which may mean those cells get dehydrated. It may mean that something we call crenation. Likewise, if you've not got enough glucose in the blood, that might mean your blood has too high a water concentration, so water might move by osmosis into cells and cause those cells to swell and to burst. You want glucose to stay at the same concentration in the blood constantly. So if you eat, as I have just done by eating a giant pizza, and you eat lots of carbohydrate, and your amylase enzymes turn it into glucose, well, that glucose is now in the blood, and it's got to get out of the blood quickly. Otherwise, your blood glucose concentration is too high. Your pancreas detects this increase, and the pancreas releases the hormone insulin. Insulin's target organ is the liver, and it tells the liver to take the glucose into its cells and convert the glucose into glycogen. Therefore, the glucose is no longer in the blood, so the blood glucose concentration decreases back to normal. Oppositely, if you are fasting and you don't eat any pizza, the pancreas will detect the decrease. It releases the hormone glucagon. Glucagon's target organ is the liver, and it causes the glycogen to be converted back into glucose. And that glucose will diffuse back into the bloodstream, and the glucose concentration returns back to normal. This process, when something happened to take the concentration away from normal, and the body's response was to bring it back down, that is called negative feedback. And your body, and the key idea called homeostasis, which is how we basically, it's a word that describes that we maintain a lot of our body conditions like temperature. Homeostasis relies on negative feedback. If there is a change away from the optimum, like when you eat, your body does something to bring that change back down to normal. Glucose regulation is a perfect example of negative feedback. Right, that is my little lesson done in terms of glucose regulation. Actually, no, I've got a bit of time. Let's just recap what diabetes is really quickly. Two types. Type 1 is a type you're usually born with. That is where your pancreas literally cannot make insulin. Or if it does make insulin, it doesn't make enough. Type 2 is where the pancreas does make insulin. So in type 2 diabetes, the pancreas isn't the problem. The problem is the cells don't respond to the insulin correctly. So if you're type 2 diabetic, usually your issue is actually with the liver and the muscles, those target cells. The only way to treat type 1 is with regular insulin injections. They do not make insulin themselves, they have to be given their own insulin. Type 2, the only way to treat it, insulin injection will do nothing. They already make insulin, so what they need to do is a carbohydrate controlled diet. In other words, they wouldn't be allowed to eat the pizza that I've just eaten, plus regular exercise. That is how they control their glucose concentrations. Because diabetes, again, all that is individuals that find it very difficult to control their blood glucose concentration. Right, now I'm definitely done. You're welcome to ask any questions of Mrs. Bentley before Mrs. Hall comes and talks about the nerves topic. She may have already done that, in which case it might nearly be 4 o'clock and you're sort of free to go. So thank you so much to all of you that have come and actually been part of this. I will just stress, the only thing in the hormones topic I have not gone through from a combined point of view is what thyroxine is and how thyroxine is an example of negative feedback. If you go on File Store, go on my revision guide, it's all there, beautifully explained. Please use it. Right, thank you so much. Peace out, everyone. All the best.